The late Daniel Quinn wrote a book called Ishmael, in which a talking gorilla named Ishmael uses the Socratic method to teach the human protagonist about our culture, how we got to be this way, and what should be involved if we ever wanted to change our direction. It's not clear why the teacher is a gorilla, but my take is that Quinn wrote it this way to help readers take ownership of our cultural problems. It puts ideas in a mouthpiece that's in the animal kingdom but isn't human, so he can speak objectively about humanity. This leads readers to think in new ways about our own role as creators of our culture. It allows us to think in ways that are outside our experience. It might even give you the courage to think we don't only have to do things the way they've been done in the past. Ishmael is a work of fiction, but it's also the truest book I've ever read. And if there's one thing that's true about humans, it's that we won't take action if we think somebody else is already doing it. But we're smart enough not to wait for a talking gorilla to solve our problems. The fantasy scenario invites readers into a dual role as learner and teacher, learning from the gorilla's ideas, but also processing those ideas so we can be the Ishmael for the people we care about in our actual lives. What Daniel Quinn understood is that if his readers weren't coaxed into that step of processing his ideas for themselves, then those ideas would die with him. Ideas are only valuable in a culture where people know how to have an idea. My ideas die unless they become shaped by you into your ideas. An idea isn't a thing, it's a potential. What does any of this have to do with music? I titled this video Musical Dark Ages because I believe we've entered into a period where musical ideas are only valued in small pockets of the culture. In most of the culture, students at all levels are no longer taught to have their own ideas, and in fact are prevented from doing so. There are consequences from that. Ideas lead to actions, and these actions make us who we are as individuals and as a culture. As a culture, our big idea is productivity and consumption, and this touches every aspect of our lives. Do you go to a job every day? Or 2 jobs? Do you feel lazy if you're not doing anything? If you've ever had music lessons, do you feel regret that you didn't practice enough, that your lessons weren't productive enough? On an individual level, this fixation on productivity and consumption can be very harmful. It can lead to depression, self-medication, jealousy, anger, hate, suicide, competition. At the cultural level, it leads to climate catastrophe and the destruction of our environment. When we as individuals engage in activities that we connect deeply with our identity, it can protect against some of those outcomes. But modern lessons don't promote that kind of engagement. We explain music at students, but music has to be nurtured and experienced, not explained. Can musical ideas compete with the cultural vision of production and consumption? Well, no, because when you're having musical ideas, you're not competing at all. The competition mindset comes from that current vision. Take capitalism, an economic system that fits perfectly with that cultural vision of production and consumption. Imagine if we took music as seriously as capitalism. I mean, that'd be crazy, right? But why is it so crazy? Why does it make more sense to pay $3 for a bottle of water than it does to sing a melody in public? Because to me, it sounds like the first thing is crazy. We worry about AI taking over because we've allowed our cultural vision to define intelligence as knowing things rather than thinking things, a product rather than a process. A computing cloud is much better than you at knowing things, but what it can never do is have your thoughts, your feelings, your ideas. Ideation is the word for the way you think, your ideas. And we have a similar word for musical thinking. It's called audiation. And it's a concept that's misunderstood by music teachers everywhere if they've heard the word at all. It's usually defined as inner hearing, but that's not the half of it. It's not inner hearing, it's inner thinking. It's having musical thoughts, musical comprehension. It doesn't even have to be inner. The way you move with music is your audiation. The way you sing, that's how you understand. It's not naming chords and reading notation. It's not even playing an instrument. The audiation instrument is you. Audiation is understanding, and it seldom darkens the doorway of a music lesson. Why is that? What I see is that we don't have a music education system. We have a music gatekeeping system. We've decided that while pretty much everybody should learn to speak, the same isn't true when it comes to music. Even though we're all wired for music, at least as much as we're wired for language. And it's not just a problem of defunding education, although that doesn't help. Music students were failing even when there were music classes in school. One problem is that we teach music from authority, like music is a skill teachers have received and it's theirs to pass on. But that's not what music is. Music is in each of us right now, and it needs to be nurtured, not imposed. When we teach from our authority, students aren't learning the subject matter. They're learning the hierarchy. They're learning subservience, obedience, and inferiority. But they're not inferior. The purpose for music and art is expression, communication, and no one can know what a student needs to express better than the student does. When I teach from authority, students are learning my limits. When I try to teach them everything I learned in my lessons, I'm looking backwards instead of daring to imagine what they might create. When people find out I'm a music teacher, they tell me things. Usually, they tell me they liked their music teacher when they were a kid. But that leaves me questioning, well, why aren't you doing any music now then? I mean, okay, you liked them, but were they really taking your education seriously? Like, what's a good outcome for music lessons? Remembering them fondly or using music as an outlet for creative expression for a lifetime, according to your potential? And let's not even talk about remembering them unfondly, because there's plenty of that too. How many students do you think achieve that outcome of creative expression? It's natural to assume that most everyone has a successful and effective time in music lessons, but that is not the case. And I can prove it right now with a thought experiment. If expression is the desired outcome for music lessons, would you get on a plane if flying outcomes were the same as lesson outcomes? Would you sign up for surgery if the anesthesiologist took your consciousness as seriously as your music teacher took your learning? Of course, you wouldn't. If we treated flying like music lessons, planes would be crashing all the time. If music teachers were lawyers, everyone would be in jail, which is actually kind of true in the United States. Do you think we can fly planes but can't reliably teach music? Of course we can. We just don't. We say music lessons should be fun, but we don't talk about how unfun it is to fail at them. So I have to ask again, are we taking music education seriously? Because students crash and burn all the time. It's the norm. Pilots have best practices that correlate with good outcomes. Surgeons have best practices that correlate with good outcomes. Music teachers also have best practices, but you may be surprised to learn that they do not correlate with good outcomes. In healthcare, research directs practitioners to best practices that most reliably result in patient improvement. In music lessons, method book sales and textbooks drive teaching practices that reliably result in uninterested students. Have you ever tried dancing to a textbook? Year after year, those students continue walking away in droves, and they're right to do it. And much like inappropriate use of antibiotics can make all antibiotics less effective over time, normalizing to lousy music teaching has made our entire culture learning resistant.